Okay, you could start whenever.
Welcome back to another episode of the Born Again podcast. I'm Katie.
And I'm Joe.
We're married, we used to be Christian, we left our faith, and now we love to talk about it and all of the aspects in between.
Absolutely. And today we're going to talk about one of the first things that got us interested in this whole journey, and that's doubt.
And we wouldn't be here without doubt.
So thank you, doubt, for bringing us to where we are today. But no, actually, we got this idea because for a few reasons. One, our friend Sarah, who we've had on the podcast before, was just asking us really real questions about...
Asking us, Joe?
Asking us what doubt is like as a Christian and like how you can reconcile with the doubts that you have that pop up. And we kind of had a hard time answering that question now. And then the other thing was that there was somebody in our Facebook group who posted something similar about doubt, right?
Yeah, and I think everybody's had that kind of a conversation where you tell a relative or a friend that you're maybe going through some difficult times with your faith, or maybe you've like come out and actually been like, okay, I'm not a Christian anymore, to someone that you knew really well, and like gotten that response back. Oh, I've been through that time before too. I've been through dark times. I've been through times of doubt. You just have to stay strong, or whatever you say. I mean, I got it from my mom. I think I got it from some other people.
We've got it from, I feel like almost everybody that I've told that we're no longer Christian has said like, oh yeah, I went through periods of doubt too.
And
blah, 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 you know.
I think it's difficult, like as a person leaving their faith with like, you have, I don't know, so much conditioning or whatever that goes along with the word doubt for you to like really know why that hurts so bad. But I think what we realized is it's just a very dismissive thing for someone to say.
Yeah.
Because it's like, essentially saying you are not at the end of your journey and you're going to come back to faith, or I know what you're feeling and like you're wrong for stopping and concluding where you're at.
Yeah,
in a way, you know,
totally.
It's just kind of like, I know better than you sort of vibes.
Yeah. That's not nice to hear.
No, it's not.
Yeah, but it is super common, and I can kind of see why, because I think even when I was a Christian and we started having like more serious doubts towards the end of our time being Christian, I had been thinking like, oh yeah, I've had doubts before. And I did have doubts as a Christian at times, you know, like there were times during my Christian walk, I'm doing air quotes, where I had doubts about things, or I would feel like, God wasn't listening to my prayers or whatever. And it would cause me to have what I felt were doubts. And in those scenarios, I would do whatever I could to kind of try to take care of those doubts and get rid of the doubts and turn me back to God.
Do you remember what kind of doubts they were?
The main thing I could remember was just having times when I was feeling really, really frustrated that nobody was listening to my prayers. Not that they weren't being answered necessarily, but just like I'm sitting in my room at night, like kneeling and praying, like just thinking words out into the air. And there's absolutely no feedback that like any of that is going anywhere, you know, like I have no clue if God's listening, and I have no idea if I'm like doing it right, or maybe is God not giving me any feedback that he's there because I'm like too sinful, or I just had doubts like that. It was more, I feel like it was less doubt that God existed, and it was more confusion, of like what I was doing wrong. But I think as a Christian, I probably would have said like, oh yeah, I was going through a period of doubt then, you know?
Yeah, I know. I think it's like hard now, like looking back, what's the distinction between like the doubt we had while we were in it and then like basically just deciding to not be a Christian anymore? Because I feel like it hurts when people say like that they know what I'm feeling, because they don't. Like obviously, because I want to say to them, if you were in my head and you knew what I was thinking, you would come to the same conclusion as me, because we're all different people and we experience life in different ways. And I think that the more time I'm spending like outside of, I guess, an ideology, I realize that different things work for different people. And it's like, you need to check in with yourself and see like where you're at, and if do you want to stay in like the place that you're in, and only you can know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right. I think that it is really it's like hurtful when someone who's a Christian kind of hears you telling them that you're not Christian anymore, and they kind of just write it off with like, oh, yeah, I had my doubts before too, and the Lord brought me back to him, and I think the same will happen to you. Yeah, it's hard to hear that, and I feel like it really stings because, at least for me on the outside now, it seems so clear that when they were having their doubts, they weren't like doubting outside of the Christian bubble. Does that make sense? Like, I kind of feel like, at least when I was a Christian, my doubts never got past the assumption that God is real and that like Christianity is real. Like if I had doubts, I wouldn't just explore them fully. I wouldn't like set down my Christian beliefs and Christian ideologies and fully explore my doubts. It was more like I would hang on tightly to my Christian ideologies, and I would look for any kind of information or any kind of books or like sermons or whatever that would help dispel my doubts and turn me back to God. You know, so it's not like I was actually exploring my doubts. I was just like trying to squash them as fast as I could. That's what doubting and exploring my doubts meant as a Christian. And like, it kind of makes sense because I mean, doubt, it was like sin, right?
Well, yeah, we talked about that. Like you can't explore your doubts fully when you start out thinking your doubt is bad. Yeah. Because then you're just trying to get rid of it. It's like a hot potato. You're just you need to throw it. Yeah. Like, so like you're, in a way, you want to do anything you can to get rid of it. Right. And like when you start with the assumption that your doubt is bad, it's kind of also saying that like your doubt's bad because it's a sin to question this ideology you're in, meaning your ideology should not be questioned, meaning your ideology is correct and you need to stay in it and all of that. And it's like, I think it's kind of a scary thing. I read this thing today on Reddit, actually, that was like, if you have doubt, your doubt is like based in fear, like that God's like not gonna like uphold what he said or whatever. And I was thinking that like having doubt and not like fully exploring it is out of fear of like going to hell or like leaving a closed system, leaving the system you're in. And I feel like when you're in a system that doesn't allow for you to question, we talked about it before, but it's like that, it just seems like a red flag. Yeah, you know, like absolutely. You should be able to question or like at least ask questions and get sufficient answers in any kind of like group that you're in or any kind of like relationship or anything like that. Yeah, I would hope that my like worldview and ideology that I live by would allow me the freedom of like listening to my own impulses. You know, that was the other thing I was just thinking about, is that doubt is a very subconscious, like natural impulse, at least for me. I mean, if I like have doubts about something, it's something that kind of just like bubbles up into my consciousness and it's like, oh, hey, red flag just popped up. Like I didn't tell that red flag to pop up. It kind of just did on its own. And that's like my subconscious talking to me, you know, that's my gut speaking. And as a Christian, I did everything I could to squash my gut, like squash my subconscious. Yeah. Not only in regards to doubt, but like especially in regards to doubt, because anytime those things pop up, I would just think like, oh, that's the devil. You know, I didn't consider it my own subconscious. I thought like, that's the devil trying to talk to me. So I want to get rid of that as fast as possible. But why does it have to be the devil? Just because, like, the answer is because it's against what you think is true. Yeah. But so whenever you decide something is true, anybody who says anything against it is the devil? I mean, that's what I believe. No, I know, but just when you think about it, when you just think about it, like, you have to allow people to speak something differently into your life in any area and try to take it with a grain of salt. And you have to be like, that's not the devil, it's just someone else's opinion. Yeah. You know, and what like, I mean? How strong is your religion if you like can't listen to outside influence, you know? And I feel like in Christianity, I couldn't. I was closed off to outside influence or anything that might cause me to doubt. I would like try to reject that and push it away. It's just very closed. I mean, obviously we talked about it all the time, but like, yeah, I'm kind of starting to see like doubt now in the rest of my life. I see it as a good thing, or if not a good thing, it's at least a neutral thing. And it's an indication of my subconscious kind of giving me a red flag, trying to tell me like, hey, something's a little fishy here.
And now,
protect you.
yeah, I want to cultivate that. I want to listen to that, and I want to be really in touch with that part of my psyche, as opposed to just immediately like turning my back on it and being like, whoa, subconscious, you're wrong. That's the devil speaking. Let's push that away and get rid of that. It's bizarre how it feels like everything, like all these natural processes like doubt and our intuition and stuff are so demonized, like literally demonized by the religion, that it's crazy. Yeah, I'm like so disconnected from my own intuition. And yeah, that's weird. It's weird that that's how we lived for so long.
I was trying to go back and figure out what's the difference between maybe like our doubts back then and like the doubt that led us here.
Yeah.
Like what's the drop off point, and how far do you need to go before you like fall off the edge into, I don't know, not being Christian anymore. And I, cause it did feel different. And Sarah
like
asked us, what's the difference between like just doubt and deconstruction? And I had no idea. But I mean, I kind of like assumed it was just allowing yourself to fall off the edge and ready to take any result you get. Yeah. Like kind of like falling, like I'm picturing like falling out into a crowd of like both sides and like kind of just being like, all right, I'm okay accepting whatever my like brain conclusion comes to, you know what I mean?
Like surrendering to logic. Almost,
Oh, I don't even want to say that, but just like surrendering to yourself. Yeah. Surrendering to your gut to be like, okay, well, I'm going to like, it's up to you. Like you decide, only you can decide. And I'm
going to take that answer, like the answer my subconscious gives me of which one feels best. I'm going to go with that.
I don't think that was a conscious decision for us.
Well, like, I mean, it kind of was. Well,
yeah, but it wasn't. It was like, I have these doubts and they're like so strong that it's like paralyzing everything else this time, that I like I can't just be reading Christian material. I have to see like if there's more, and I have to like be willing to accept that like maybe I was wrong my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read this thing. It kind of goes along with what we were talking about with the devil talking to you, like when you have doubt. But I read it on Reddit. I was trying to research like what people feel when they feel doubts within Christianity, and this person said,
it's on the Christianity subreddit.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They said, why am I struggling so much with doubt? The closer I draw to God and the more I try to get to know Jesus, the more doubt floods my mind. My logical brain keeps trying to talk my own self out of my faith. I get close and then run the other direction. How do you sustain your faith and quell the doubt? I feel like I'm being assaulted by the enemy. I suppose I should be happy about that because the devil doesn't go after the ones he's not afraid of losing.
Whoa. I've said that before.
I know, so have I.
Whoa.
Well, let me just go back to the part where it says, my logical brain keeps trying to talk my own self out of my faith. And I feel like the implication there is your logical brain is bad.
Yeah.
Like just the way it was said. And we've said it before, and I feel like even now it's hard to like really feel that it's like okay to be logical, and it's okay to like decide like just using like facts or like knowledge or like reading books and like making a decision.
Yeah.
Because for so long it was only like always like, if you decide on your own based on like what you read and knowledge and like your brain, like it's sinful. So like you won't make a good decision. Yeah. And I feel like it's such a subtle topic, but it's like this person is like, I'm using logic and it makes me want to run away. And like we have one camp of people are like, run, like your logic, there's something in you that's telling you that something's off.
Like trust
it. Yeah. And then there's another camp that you grew up with your whole life that's like, definitely do not trust that. That is like the devil. It's worldly and everything. And so as a person, it's incredibly conflicting. Yeah. Because like, who do you listen to? What do you do? It's just like, even if you want to like be logical, there's always going to be like something, I think, in your body that's like, hey, like, remember when you learned logic was sinful? Like, because I still have it, I still have like, if I say I want to love myself or I want to trust in myself and trust my own intuition, there's a part of me that's like, like that's kind of bad. Like that's corny. Like that's like wishy-washy. That's from the world. Yeah. Like you shouldn't do those things. But then obviously there's like a new part of me that's like, hey, isn't that helping you now? Isn't that good for you right now? Like, aren't you enjoying your life? And like, able to make better decisions and all of that. But so I feel that really struck me when I saw the person say that. And then talking about the enemy at the end and how the devil doesn't want to go after, he wouldn't go after someone he's like worried about, or not worried about, I mean.
It's the perfect trap, because like the more you start doubting, then your Christian peers are going to be like, oh, you know what, you actually should be encouraged by this, because it means that the devil is going after you, and the devil only goes after the strongest Christians who God's going to use the most. So make sure you turn back to God and get back plugged into him, because you should actually be expecting this to happen. It's like a crazy loop, you know, there's no way to get out.
I guess what I like think about when I think of that is like, what if the devil wasn't there, and what if God wasn't there? Is it possible for you to be having doubts about something on your own? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, you can't just assume that anytime anything bad happens that it's the devil. Because if you took out the devil, and like, let's just say you took out the devil, bad things would happen still. And there would be times when you doubted different things, like whether it's like a huge ideology or whatever. But like, I feel like that's the kind of stuff that always brings me back to like a grounded place of like, okay, if there was no God and if there was no devil, like, would I still like have times when I like felt low or had a lull or like doubted anything? And the answer to that is yes, of course.
Yeah. Right.
And I feel like when you take a look at that, it's hard to say, okay, how do you know in this moment that a devil is making you doubt? And how do you know that it's not just like your own intuition telling you to get out?
Totally. Well, I feel like that's like part of the like torture that it is to be a Christian, is that you are constantly having to answer that question for yourself and constantly trying to decide, is this me? Is this a good idea? Or is this the devil like trying to trick me or whatever? And the thing that complicates it even further is that not only as a Christian, did I believe that the devil could like influence me and influence my life, I thought that I was like literally like had the devil in my flesh, you know, like from the time I was a baby, I was partially devil, you know? And so like, of course I couldn't trust my intuition. But the thing that's the most crazy to me is that like we were reading some other Reddit threads today, and actually, Katie, you read that one. I don't remember what it was about, but it was on the Christianity subreddit. And you were saying it actually brought up like some feelings for you, like, oh, like these people sound so confident when they're answering. Like, where does that come from? Like, it kind of made you feel weird, right?
I don't know about you guys, but like, I feel still like a little bit of fear always. I think because of how like black and white Christianity is, you're like always scared that you've like made the wrong move. And I don't know if I'll ever like really get over that, but I'm like, it's really hard for me to be confident in myself because I was like, felt like I was tricked for so long. But I get like scared that I think that now when I see confidence, I feel like I don't understand how people, I guess, can have that confidence, because I want to like be so open about everything, and it really confuses me. But
yeah, so you were saying like or it was a post that was about a Christian who was posting saying, hey, I'm struggling with all of these doubts, fellow Christians, how would you address these? And so the answers to that, I had a real like striking realization when I was reading through all the answers that these other Christians were giving to the original poster who was having doubts. And I realized that as a Christian, when you're trying to answer the questions of doubt, like for instance, why does bad things happen to people? Like, why does evil happen in the world if God exists and all of that? All of the answers that I've ever heard from the Christian perspective are always kind of from within the Christian box. Like all of the people who are answering, trying to comfort this Christian, we're starting off with the assumption that God exists, that Christianity is real, that he created the earth and everything in it.
And that the Bible is
true. Yeah. So that's like kind of the place where they're arguing from. And I feel like the problem with that is that you can't say that you're exploring your doubts if you're only like if you're starting from that assumption. If you're like only searching for answers from within your solidified Christian worldview, you're never going to like crack out of that. You're never going to crack out of the shell, you know? You're kind of stuck in it.
We're not saying that's what we want anyone to do, but I think that's like so important.
Well, I'm just saying, I feel like you can't claim to have explored your doubts before as a Christian if you've only ever like gotten your answers from other Christian people or Christian books that helped you solve your questions. It doesn't work like that, because you're not actually getting the whole picture. You're getting a really tiny sliver of like perspective on your questions, and they're all obviously going to turn you straight back to Christianity,
because that's what they want to do.
Yeah, well, that's what they want to do. And as a Christian, when I started having doubts, that's what I wanted to happen to me too. You know, like when I had doubts, I didn't actually want to explore my doubts. I wanted my doubts to just go away.
That's what I wanted too.
Yeah, so I do whatever I could to get rid of them. But yeah, I see now I can't have claimed to like fully explore my doubts until the very end of our Christianity, when I really did explore my doubts and then stopped being Christian, you know?
I think that if you start off from the place of like assuming that God is there and that the Bible is true, and just taking, I guess, like finding advice and finding comfort in the Bible and God when you're having doubts, you're like having a bias. Like it's a biased exploration.
Totally.
You're not starting at ground zero. And I think that like I've never realized how valuable that is to really start at like the most ground zero that you can with anything that you're trying to decide. You know, like what assumptions am I bringing to this? Like, get them out of here. Like, what biases am I bringing here? Like, get them out of here. I mean, as best as you can. I don't think that it's possible to like get rid of like all of your biases and all of your perceptions, but like it makes a better decision. Like you can judge people better. You can judge like a situation better if you just get rid of all of your biases and like preconceived notions. Yeah. And it helps you, I think, like have a healthier way forward.
Totally. And of course that's like really hard to do. And we can't claim to not have any biases or any assumptions, you know, before we started our journey to where we are now with everything. But I do think that we're like so much more aware of how our biases impact our perceptions and stuff like that. And it just feels a lot easier to explore this stuff when you're kind of not in a cage. The other part of that is that I really feel like in order to fully explore your doubts, you need to be like theoretically okay with either outcome, you know? So if you're exploring your doubts the whole time, you're like, man, I can't wait to be back in Christianity and like not have these doubts anymore, then you're not fully exploring them. I feel like you really need to explore your doubts and be okay with either outcome on the other side. Like that's surrendering to the process, you know, that's trusting your intuition and trusting your logic and all of that. But
I know. I feel like it's so crazy. I would never see it before, but if you're like assuming that you're going to come back and like be okay, like where you were at, then how can that be? Like, how can you have ever gone a different way? I mean, you say that you'll go where you're like looking kind of, or like if you have a goal and you're like looking towards it, like that, you can end up there, you know, like it's more likely you're going to end up there. And if you're always like looking towards the outcome that you want to happen, then you're just going to end up there. It's not like a true exploration.
Yeah. Right.
Of all of those feelings.
Yeah. So yeah, doubt is good. I enjoy when I notice doubt popping up in me as we like read new books and explore new ideas and things like that. I'm excited now when I get that feeling of doubt pop up, because I'm like, hey, my intuition's talking to me, like something's up here. And guess what? I'm allowed to listen to it, and I'm like allowed to explore it fully, because I don't have any ties on either side of, you know, the Christian atheism debate, or I'm trying to be open in other areas as well, you know? But yeah, it's just really interesting how different it feels to be kind of free to explore that stuff, as opposed to treating doubt as just a sin and something that you need to try to get rid of.
I feel like in the beginning we had no idea that we were coming in with any kind of biases, like you said. Like we didn't know what the difference was between like how we were doubting, you know, like when we were inside Christianity and then like doubting on the outside and really exploring those things. Like I think we were just searching for answers, you know, like there wasn't any kind of plan. And I feel like you can't really know that when you're going through that process. But I feel like for a while I've wanted to like talk about this, like how dismissive it is when other people say to you, like, I have experienced what you experienced, and like, you're going to be okay, and you're going to go back into Christianity, and everything's going to be fine. Like, I feel so strongly now that like nobody really knows what's going on in another person's head.
Yeah.
And like saying that like they'll come to your conclusion is just completely like blind.
Yeah.
Because that we have no idea what other people are like, how they're perceiving reality.
Yeah.
And how they're, you know, how they're having their life and what they need.
Right.
And I feel like even like going back to Christianity, if someone wants to do that because that's like what's best for them, then that's totally fine. I think like the problem with all of it comes when someone's like, my way is right, and if you will come back eventually, kind of thing. Like you're gonna come back because you're gonna realize that I'm right.
Right.
And I feel like that is so triggering. Or like, and it's really painful to hear from other people.
Totally. Because
it completely dismisses your journey and what happened to you, and it kind of stops the conversation and sort of makes it so you can't really explain yourself further or just share how you're feeling. Absolutely.
I think it's also interesting that as a Christian, you know, we wanted to get rid of doubts as soon as possible, because I feel like I had a lot of comfort in that sense of security that like I knew the truth. You know, that's what felt best as a Christian, was when I was driving with God and I had a great prayer life and all of that, and I just knew that I had the truth. And something that's been kind of tough on the other side now as atheists is that I still have doubts, you know, and I feel like I still question things, and I have doubts about the origins of the universe, as anyone should. But I've found it kind of difficult to live with doubt, you know, and I think like you've experienced this too, right? Where I like want to be right again, you know, I want to have the answer. It was interesting reading on the Christianity subreddit and seeing some of the, just reading some people talking about evolution versus creationism and stuff. And the Christians are saying like, well, evolution has a lot of holes in it too. And the Big Bang Theory has holes in it. And that's not, they don't have all the answers either. So how can they say that the Bible has contradictions and have a problem with that? And the answer to that is that nobody on the other side is claiming that evolution is perfectly figured out and we have every one of the answers figured out. Like we have, the science community has doubts, and I'm saying that in quotes too, but they have like questions too. There are unanswered questions, and there are things we don't know, and there's things we're not sure about because we're still learning and we're trying to figure things out. But as a person who used to be Christian, it's kind of hard sometimes to live with that like unsureness.
Yeah, it's not necessarily living with doubts, but it's living with unknowing.
Yeah.
I mean, like as a Christian, we had all of the answers like perfectly rounded up, and we had like an answer for everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, I think, is the most appealing part of it. And I feel like that's why when you leave and a lot of people are talking to you about it, they're like, well, do you have an answer for this? Do you have an answer for this? See, you don't know. Yeah. And it's so difficult to say anything to that, because how can you? Right. It's like a completely different, I don't know, lifestyle you're living in.
Yeah.
Like being okay with the unknown.
Yeah. And that's tough.
It is tough. And I think though, like you always have to come back to, if you don't know something, you can't just substitute something in and say that it's right.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't know, just like how many times have like, how many times in the past has like us as a society changed our mind about what things are? Yeah. You know, like why things happen.
And how great is that?
So many times.
Yeah.
I feel like going through this process has made me want to be more open-minded and like not really put like a hard stamp of like, this is truth on anything. But it's also been like difficult because like not having that confidence that I once had is just like a different way to live your life. And it's like, it's kind of makes you feel a little shaky if you're not used to living like that. Yeah. I think
I still feel shaky, you know? I mean, when we read these like Christian posts, I feel like feelings come up of like doubt and a little bit of fear. Like, oh man, are we sure that we made the right choice? You know, that thought crosses my mind. I wouldn't say often. It's definitely less often now than it was when we first left Christianity, but like that thought still comes up for me regularly, you know, where I have that feeling like, oh man, what if Christianity is right? It's almost like a fear that I'm gonna like hear something new that is going to make me feel like, whoa, I was totally wrong. Christianity's real. I don't, saying that now, I don't think that can happen. And I've read so much stuff to like try to find that answer when I was Christian. And also since I've left Christianity, I've been like trying to find a convincing Christian argument for the existence of God or whatever, any number of different topics. But yeah, I'm like open to that, and I still feel a little bit shaky about it. And I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know if I ever will have like the sense of like deep inner security that I had when I was a Christian, because inevitably outside of a dogmatic religion, we as a society like don't have the answers to everything. So yeah,
I think because we had that once, we're never going to feel like I don't know, like we were conditioned to need that security or like have that security. And I feel like now living, I think we're always going to have to like live with some of that.
Yeah.
I assume that it'll be better as we like go on. But like, I think there's going to be that feeling of like, man, like we used to have all those answers. We don't think those answers are true anymore, but like, dang, did it feel good to like have a solid like answer for everything, And now that I think about it, though, like there wasn't really an answer for everything, because like a lot of questions you ask Christians, they can't answer.
The answers are so stupid for so many of the questions.
Yeah, they're really long and vague, and they're very roundabout and very circular, and they come directly from the Bible. And if you don't believe in the Bible, then it doesn't even matter.
Right.
So like, I think you need to remember that like we did, I don't know, we tried to have our questions answered, and like even they claim to have answers, but they really don't have
but
answers.
Their answers are kind of sucky.
I think that everybody like makes do with what they have, and they have the answers they have. And I don't know, that's all that you can do as a person.
Yeah. And I feel like the flip side of that too is that while it does feel a little bit insecure, like shaky to not have the answers to the questions of life, there's also so much freedom in that. I feel like I don't need to have the answers, and I'm slowly kind of starting to get more comfortable living in that space. And at times it really does feel like freedom. Like it's okay that I don't know where everything came from. That's like too much of a question to be a burden on a single mind anyways. Like it's okay that I don't know. And the cool thing about it is that I can like try out different answers. And if I want to get into some new book or some new author's way of living for a while and try that out, then awesome. And if I want to change my mind later and say, that's like not really for me, I don't think that's right, and switch to something else, then great, I can try that too. And it's cool. Like there definitely is this sense of like freedom and motion and fluidity that is great. It like feels really good. That I didn't have at all in Christianity, because that's obviously like just so locked down and rigid and strict, and like there's no room for movement or for changing your mind about anything. So yeah, while it does feel a little shaky on this side, it also feels like super freeing. And I feel like I'm kind of just slowly like growing into that freedom, and it's starting to feel good, good more often than feeling scary or shaky or whatever.
So what do you think the difference between like having a doubt and then actually deconstructing is?
Yeah, like what's that final line? I think, I kind of feel like...
I mean, I'm sure there is no one right answer.
Yeah,
because
I'm
of what
obviously
we're just
not
talking about.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is probably wrong, but listen to me. No, I feel like there's a certain like level of doubting that it like steps outside of the Christian circle completely. So like for an example, on that Reddit post we were reading, the Christian who was having doubts was saying, hey, I'm having a hard time with reconciling the fact that like little kids die of disease all the time on the earth. And I don't know if they go to heaven or hell or whatever, but either way, they're like dying as little kids. And I feel like a good God wouldn't do that. So that's a doubt the Christian was having. And the answer that the Christians were giving him were like, well, God didn't want it to be that way, but we have a fallen nature because of like the original sin and all of that. That's that's the answer I would have given too. Like, God doesn't want that to happen, but like because Eve sinned in the garden, it kind of screwed us all for all of time. The way I see that is like, that is the smallest, most closed-minded way to answer that question. Because if you like take a couple steps back, you zoom out a little bit, you quickly realize that God created the system where he created Adam and Eve, and he knew that Adam and Eve were going to sin and like curse all of mankind. So like, regardless whether or not he wants those little kids to be dying of disease, he is the one who like created the system that made that happen. And either he knew that was going to happen from the beginning because he's omnipotent. Is that what it is? Omniscient.
It's
Yeah.
omniscient.
He's supposed to be omniscient. So either he knew that whole thing was going to happen, which in my mind, that makes him evil. Cause like, hey, you made a stupid system here where like everyone's going to be damned to hell except for a tiny unknown select few. Or he like messed up and didn't know that was going to happen. And then he's stupid and I don't want to follow him anyways, you know, but that's what I mean. Like, I feel like you can say, oh, God doesn't want it to be like that. And it's like, well, wait, you need to step out of your bubble and realize that if what you're claiming is true, that God created all of this and that he's omniscient and omnipotent and all of that, then he's the one who like created the system where people are going to hell. He created hell. And that's like a thing, you know, I feel like those are the types of doubts that will begin your deconstruction, is when you can step like outside of the bubble and you can look at it as like a rational, logical person, as opposed to looking at it as a Christian.
And whether or not your deconstruction ends in you being more of a progressive Christian or not, I feel like those are the types of doubts that do lead to a change in faith,
Right?
Like a change
exactly.
in what you believe.
Yeah.
And I feel like it does seem so different now than when we were in, because I do feel like we had times of doubt inside of Christianity, but then like they went away. I don't remember how,
Right.
but they
We
just
read
didn't
new
feel
books
as
or
real.
yeah, yeah,
And nothing will feel as shattering as the day that I really like stepped outside of that bubble.
yeah. It's like when you
I'll
start
never
to
forget it.
when you start to think for yourself and like use your own logic in contradiction to like your Christian logic. Yeah. You're right. That is like a shattering time. And that first time you have those feelings and you start to feel like you're kind of like waking up to something, or you're having these big, like scary realizations that, oh man, all of this could be
Fake.
not real.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I'm having doubts that God is listening to me, but no, it's like, oh man, what if God has never existed and my entire life has been a sham?
What
like,
if I only believe this because my parents taught me and their parents taught them, and then
their parents taught them.
yeah.
And, yeah, those are the types of like shattering doubts that are kind of outside of the Christian box that I feel like are really hard, would be really hard or impossible for a Christian to honestly recover from. Because once you start considering that stuff, it's like, that's what will start to unravel years of faith.
Or not.
Or not. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really curious to hear from you guys who are listening, and what were your doubts like when you were a Christian, and what were the doubts like when you actually started to deconstruct? You know, what was the difference? Did you feel like there was a difference? It's just really interesting.
It's hard to look back sometimes, because like when you're in it, you're not looking for like anything. You're not really looking for signs. You're not looking for, and you don't really want to think about your doubt that much because you're so terrified. So like looking back, it's like hard to know.
Yeah.
You know, what were you really feeling in that moment?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you have any good journal entries,
yeah, let us know.
Let us know.
I think it's definitely worth exploring, because even just the conversations we had leading up to this podcast today, I felt like were really cool, and it kind of helped me to keep a good perspective on my thought life moving forward now, and making sure I am open. And if I can, like, try to think outside of whatever bubbles I'm in now, because I know I am in boxes and it's hard to tell like the box you've put yourself in, but yeah, keep questioning, like if your worldview is preventing you from exploring your doubts, then that should be a red flag. And I would encourage you to explore those doubts more deeply, and don't turn away from your intuition, but instead like listen to it, follow it, cultivate it, love it. It's like here for you. It's here for us to help us, and it's super helpful. So yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up, huh?
Yeah, seems pretty good.
Cool.
It's a very nebulous conversation.
You think? I guess we'll find out.
It's like hard to talk about doubt. I realized like doubt is like just it's just like a crazy concept, and there's a lot of like baggage tied to the word, especially coming from a Christian standpoint. Yeah, never realized that one word could strike so much fear in me.
Well, I'm gonna make a new definition of doubt that makes it very positive, because I think that doubt is a really positive thing. And if it's not positive, it's at least neutral, like I said, because it's just an awesome part of our intuition that we should learn to trust and cultivate. So yeah. Before we go, I just wanted to say thank you again for everybody who's following along on Instagram and on our Facebook group. Facebook group has been so cool, like best community there, best conversations. If you haven't checked that out or joined the group, it's a private or secret group or whatever, so nobody else in your life is going to know you're joining.
See it.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to say a quick thank you to Tara and FTW, a couple new people who've started supporting us on Patreon. That means so much to us, and it's just really cool that you guys are all resonating with what we're sharing here. So
thanks again so much, and we'll see you next week.